turmoil here in Washington. The House Speaker Mike Johnson's fight to avoid a government shutdown just hit a major snag as Donald Trump joined the conservative revolt against this funding bill. Our chief congressional correspondent, Manu Raju, is up on Capitol Hill, and CNN's Kristen Holmes has details on all of Trump's latest dramatic moves. Manu, we're awaiting an update, first of all, from the House Democratic leadership. But what's the latest on the Hill, and is Speaker Johnson in trouble?
Yeah, Trump's 11th hour demand, Wolf, has sent Washington scrambling. They looked like they were on a glide path to pass a bill to keep the government open past Friday up until March 14th. But in the 11th hour, Donald Trump has come out opposing the plan, bashing the deal that Mike Johnson cut with congressional leaders and contending that it should also include an increase to the national debt limit. Remember, the debt limit is an incredibly complex negotiation that typically takes months and months to resolve. Trump wants this off the table now. He says, why deal with it now when Joe Biden is in office? Add it to what Congress is dealing with and get it off their plate. He's also criticizing deals that Johnson cut in order to get Democratic support. Remember, in order to get this bill across a narrowly divided House, he needs Democratic votes. So Democrats have their own demands. That's been all part of this complex negotiation that's been happening behind the scenes for weeks. But after Johnson, as well as the other congressional leaders, put this deal out on Wednesday night, it was roughly 1,500 pages. Many lawmakers revolted, particularly on the right, arguing they did not have time to review the plan, and people on the right were critical of Johnson's deal cutting. So where does this leave things now? Uncertain, Wolf. Democratic leaders have been huddling behind the scenes, trying to figure out their strategy on how to proceed, whether to fight this or whether to try to cut a deal with the president-elect or with Speaker Johnson. That's why this moment right now will be critical. And we hear from Hakeem Jeffries and his Democratic leadership team. How do they plan to proceed? And how does the Speaker of the House deal with this? On top of all this, on January 3rd is the day that he needs to be reelected Speaker. He can afford very few defections in order to become the next Speaker of the House. And already at least one Republican member, Thomas Massie of Kentucky, told me that he will not vote for him come January 3rd, which is one big reason why, Wolf, that a lot of this is uncertain at this moment. How does Johnson navigate a position that Donald Trump has put him in against the wall? And how does he get the votes to avoid a shutdown? Huge questions at this moment in Washington, Wolf.
We'll hear shortly what Hakeem Jeffries, the Democratic leader, has to say. Kristen, you're with us as well. As you know, Trump has played an enormous role in all of this. What are you hearing? What's the latest on his part?
Yeah, and just really quickly to bounce off of what Manu was just saying, I mean, up until just a few hours ago, it seemed as though Speaker Johnson was in the clear when it came to President-elect Donald Trump. Donald Trump has had nothing but glowing things to say about Speaker Johnson, but this, of course, throws a wrench in all of this. Now, what we saw today was essentially a drip, drip, drip of information coming from Elon Musk.
Kristen, I'm going to interrupt for a moment. I want to listen to what the Democratic leader, Hakeem Jeffries, is saying.
Reached a bipartisan agreement to fund the government, keep it open, and meet the needs of the American people. We reached a bipartisan agreement to provide disaster assistance to everyday Americans whose lives have been upended and turned upside down as a result of hurricanes, tornadoes, wildfires, floods, and other types of extreme weather events. We reached a bipartisan agreement to meet the needs of the American people and provide assistance to farmers, families, children, seniors, veterans, men and women in uniform, and working class Americans. House Republicans have now unilaterally decided to break a bipartisan agreement that they made. House Republicans have been ordered to shut down the government and hurt everyday Americans all across this country. House Republicans will now own any harm that is visited upon the American people that results from a government shutdown or worse. An agreement is an agreement. It was bipartisan, and there is nothing more to say. Thank you.
What about the debt limit? Is that possible here, Mr. Jeffries?
What is Speaker
All right, that was the
Johnson
House
saying?
Democratic leader Hakeem Jeffries making a very, very strong point. I want to bring in our analysts to assess what's going on because the stakes right now here in Washington are enormous. Alex Thompson, what's your understanding of this remarkable turnabout, a bipartisan agreement, Democrats and Republicans working together to keep the government operating, and all of a sudden it collapses?
Yeah, this could foreshadow how the next 2 years and 4 years could go under Donald Trump, because clearly it broke apart in part because of Donald Trump and Elon Musk. But I did find it really notable that Hakeem Jeffries did not mention Donald Trump. He clearly was not trying to say this is the part of the Donald Trump chaos or government. He blamed it all on House Republicans.
Brian Lanza, what do you think? Because the stakes, as I keep saying, are enormous right now. The government shuts down. A lot of Americans, millions of Americans, are going to suffer.
Certainly millions of Americans are going to suffer, but I think if you look at the standpoint for where President Trump is he feels that this CR is so loaded with so much pork, even more than enough pork to feed all of Iowa. That's a concern, and the debt ceiling is another concern. You know, President Trump's being strategic on how he wants the lame duck to sort of benefit his administration. Certainly dealing with the debt ceiling and dealing with a temporary spending in March becomes a challenge, and he wants to weigh in. And Speaker Johnson's going to do whatever President Trump says. We've seen that after time. Speaker always acquiesces to what the president wants to do, and that's where in this situation. So he's breaking a deal, which is, let's get used to it. President Trump, if he doesn't like the deal, and he's not involved in the deal, it's not a deal. That's what we're doing.
But they got to reach an agreement within the next 2 days, otherwise it's going to collapse.
I
and
think
the
it does
Speaker,
collapse.
as we know, Mike Johnson, he's a Republican. He accepted this bipartisan deal.
And he's on the hook for it. I mean, his speakership is on the line. There are people, there are conservatives that are very upset with the deal he's cut. There are people in the Twitter space, whatever that means, which is the MAGA space, that are very upset. And there's constituencies that are very upset. Clearly, Speaker Johnson has a lot of work to do. He kept a lot of people out of the loop. He didn't completely tell the complete picture to President Trump of what the CR was going to look like. And President Trump, the language has been made public. J.D. Vance and President Trump clearly have objections to it. They told the Speaker the way in, and they think what it needs to take to fix. And they're being strategic. It is a smart thing to punt a lot of these things to President Trump's term. It is a smart thing to try to deal with the debt ceiling now. But the pork that's being layered at this right now is just too much for President Trump and too much for conservatives to swallow, and they're not going to swallow it.
We just heard from J.D. Vance up on Capitol Hill. I want to play a clip of what he just said.
Would you support a clean CR?
Well, what the president believes is we should support a clean CR so long as it contains a debt limit increase. That's the position of the president, and that's what we're going to try to push for.
Are you supporting a government shutdown then?
Have a good night, guys. Thanks.
Amisha, what do you think is going on right now?
A lot of horse trading. President-elect Trump wants to preside as though he is currently president. He is weighing very heavily on these decisions. With that being said, he also is not in love with Speaker Johnson. This could be the axe that gets them a new speaker. And I think that he's walking him into that path. Make no mistake, Americans are going to get hurt. Several Americans will get hurt, from federal workers to those who aren't, who are waiting on SSI checks and things like that. We know that this is going to cause a major issue. However, I think that he is willing to do it, one, to prove a point, but also to ensure that there aren't any major policy changes that happen before he is actually in the White House a second time.
You think it could undermine Speaker Johnson's reelection?
Potentially, although I don't know anybody besides Speaker Johnson that could get the votes given the slim margins. But yes, it's definitely a risk. Also, a risk for President Trump is he would be the first unelected president to be blamed for a government shutdown. Which is what, if this actually does go to a shutdown, he risks.
But that's assuming that they blame him, because
Yeah,
I do think it was very strategic that, to a point made earlier by you actually, that Hakeem Jeffries came out and blamed the House Republicans. He didn't mention Donald Trump's name once. And I think that that says something.
It's not just Donald Trump, it's Elon Musk, who's deeply involved in opposing this bipartisan deal that the Speaker worked out. And Democratic Congressman Boyle, Brian, let me get your reaction. He posted this, and I'm quoting him now. Seems like the real leader of the GOP isn't Donald Trump. The leader of the GOP is Elon Musk. He's now calling the shots.
It's a cute statement. He probably gets a couple of retweets, but we've seen this movie long enough to know that there's only one executive producer to the show, and it's Donald Trump. Elon is an actor, and what do executive producers do? They fire actors and they hire actors. That's the way the process is going to work.
Because Elon Musk came out against this compromise bill first, and then Trump followed with his statement.
Sure, of course, and it's safe to assume that Elon most likely coordinated with President Trump. Do the balloon first, I'll follow up. Like, they're in coordinations right now, but it's also important to realize there's only one executive producer to the Donald Trump show, and that's Donald Trump.
I think that's true. And the secondary part of that is that a lot lot of it plays into the whole Doge theory that he has. If he's saying that there's way too much pork in here, he can also have that conversation about things that need to get cut, a bloated government. He's going to utilize that himself as well.
But it does speak, I was going to say, it does speak to inherent tension in their relationship, and that Elon not only is the richest man in the
Relationship
world,
between who?
Elon Musk and Donald Trump. Elon Musk is the richest man in the world, and he also has billions and billions and billions in government contracts, and he's also been appointed to a huge position in Donald Trump's government. And he also is willing to say his mind. Donald Trump is too. What happens when they disagree? And we actually don't know how this, you said actor. We don't know how this, bromance is going to play out.
We kind of do know. I would say this, the Chinese have a saying, you can't have two tigers live in one mountaintop. So we do know how this is going to, at some point there's going to be a conflict, and there's one executive producer, and there's one president, and that's Donald Trump. And Elon wasn't always with Trump from the very beginning. Elon is a new factor in the Trump space, probably less than 2.5 years, maybe 2 years into it. He's a bit character.
Elon Musk's government shutdown, a sentence that even a year ago would have seemed completely bizarre, but not now, not after images like that. Because the man who has been by Trump's side nearly every day since the election and since that moment at a rally is pushing the country to the brink of a shutdown. He is going after the House Speaker's funding deal just days before the deadline. Speaker Mike Johnson has spent weeks negotiating a deal with Democrats, doing what lawmakers are doing, horse trading, negotiating. And of course, he needs Democrat support to pass anything in the closely divided House that he faces. And it was Musk who stood up and said, no way, firing the first shot. Just hours after Johnson released his bill, Musk posted this on his social media platform: "This bill should not pass." And then he posted a photo of the bill with the caption, "Ever seen a bigger piece of pork?" Then he posted, "The more I learn, the more obvious it becomes that this spending bill is a crime." And a threat, quote, "Any member of the House or Senate who votes for this outrageous spending bill deserves to be voted out in 2 years." Well, he has the money to primary them, doesn't he? Then he posted again, "No bill should be passed Congress until January 20th when real Donald Trump takes office." None. Zero. Well, that, of course, definitionally means a shutdown. You can't move the dates on some of these things, and a long one. The deadline to pass the spending bill is this Friday at midnight. That's a full month before Trump takes office. And on a day when the Dow plunged more than 1,100 points and marked the longest losing streak since 1974, let's just be loud and clear who's in the driver's seat here. It's Elon Musk. He posted first at 4:15 a.m. Eastern Time. In fact, he posted and reposted about this bill more than 70 times before Trump even weighed in. More than 70 times. Trump followed Musk in a major way. 12 hours later, just moments ago, after those 70 posts from Elon, Trump said in a statement, "Republicans must get smart and tough. If Democrats threaten to shut down the government unless we give them everything they want, then call their bluff." He went on to say this chaos would not be happening if we had a real president. We will in 32 days. Well, of course, whatever you think of the bill itself and the ugliness of government, it's a fair conversation. Nonetheless, there are laws and there are rules and there is a deadline for a spending bill. And the reason that there is this sudden chaos is because of Musk and his last-minute move to undermine Johnson. And again, we should note it is Trump and Musk, not Democrats or House Republicans, who are threatening the shutdown by killing the bill. And we've seen Musk's influence on Trump take hold right before our eyes, right? Smack in the middle of Trump and his running mate at the high-profile Army-Navy. I mean, it's almost like an AI image and someone keeps plastering him in the middle, except for this is actually real photos. And don't forget, Trump and Musk were together. Musk joined the family photo for Trump on the election night victory. Trump's granddaughter posted a photo with him, calling him an uncle. He was even seated right next to Trump at Thanksgiving dinner, swaying to the YMCA song. But tonight, some of these images, which then seemed funny, take on a more somber tone as the clock clicks down to a shutdown. And Speaker Mike Johnson, who was being responsible as the Speaker of the House Republican, is running out of options. Who was it that said chaos follows? Oh, it was Nikki Haley. All right, everyone's here with me now. Former Congressman Charlie Dent. And lest anyone think, Congressman, that you are in the witness protection program, I just want everyone to know that it's the holiday season and you're stuck in traffic. And I'm sad you're not sitting next to me, but there you are. So you're looking very all dressed here to come on set. But let's go ahead and start with where we are. 70 posts from Elon Musk, 70, starting at 4:15 a.m., stirring this up. Trump weighs in finally, and here we are, chaos and disarray. What do you think's happening here?
Well, this is governmental dysfunction. These are exhibits A, B, C, D, and F. What's happening here is that Donald Trump and the hardliners in the House Republican Conference wanted to kick these appropriations bills into the new year. They got their wish, and they're going to fund the government until about March the 13th or 14th. And now Elon Musk and Donald Trump don't want to do that. They've changed their minds. This is a funding bill that's just simply going to fund the government at current levels. Yes, there's a cost of living adjustment for congressmen, and there's some other things in here too. There's some phony business about Liz Cheney, but it makes no sense. They should have simply passed the 12 appropriations bills before Christmas, like many of the Republican appropriators wanted to do in the House and the Senate. But it was Donald Trump and the hardliners in the House Republican Conference who wanted to kick it in the new year. Now they don't. And frankly, many of them are not going to vote for a continuing resolution anyway. So they take advice and input from the very people who won't vote for the bill that must pass. This is gobsmackingly stupid.
It is an incredible moment. By the way, you mentioned the Liz Cheney thing in there. There is something going after Liz Cheney saying she broke the law. I'm going to get to that in a moment, actually. Former spokesperson for her will be here. But Vivian Salama, can I just ask you, because I know you're covering the Trump transition for the Wall Street Journal and you've been breaking so much news. Musk goes ahead of Trump on this funding bill publicly, and significantly so. He is the leader here in the charge against it. 70 posts, 12 hours between his first post and Trump finally weighing in. How risky of a game is Musk playing?
It's incredibly risky, and amazingly, his advisors have been remarkably silent on why it took Donald Trump, or even Vice President-elect J.D. Vance, so long to weigh in on this issue, whereas Elon Musk, as you were saying, was tweeting all day long about this, as was Vivek Ramaswamy, the two men who are leading the Department of Government Efficiency coming into this next administration. And so it is very unusual to see close advisors to Donald Trump getting ahead of him on critical issues like this. But also, whether or not there was any coordination in advance, advisors told us that they did kind of receive Trump's blessing, that they were on the same page, but they really couldn't give much more of an explanation as to why Elon Musk was just kind of going full-throated, rejection of the bill so early on without us hearing from Trump. And so he is definitely playing a risky game. Donald Trump typically likes to kind of be his own spokesman. We know that. I happen to cover his first White House, and so we saw that play out, and it'll be interesting to see how this plays out too.
I mean, Karen, it will be interesting because, when Icarus flew too close to the sun, but this is a very fascinating moment, right? You've got chaos, as Manu was describing it on Capitol Hill, chaos, right? Complete and utter disarray, and that utter disarray is because of Elon Musk.
Because of Elon Musk and because of Donald Trump. And I'm going to say something that I'm predicting right now. I'm going to get to say maybe 100 times before Donald Trump is out of office. We told you so. Democrats predicted that as you point out, Nikki Haley predicted that Donald Trump was going to bring chaos. And to the point that was just made, so you have two unelected corporate billionaires basically driving the decision about what's going to happen with our budget, whether or not to default and whether or not to raise the debt ceiling, whether or not to, miss the deadlines, and we won't have air traffic controllers, and we won't have, all the government functions. And, I have to believe that Americans are asking themselves, wait a second, that's not what we voted for. And Trump has already said he doesn't know he can do the one thing that they did say they wanted, which was lower costs.
And of course, obviously, the thing about Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy and, many in their sphere, right, people in Silicon Valley, they think this is all about government efficiency. And obviously, Trump and others have other things in mind. Democratic Congressman Dan Goldman reacted to Musk and what he said about the spending bill. He said, quote, as the shadow president-elect, Elon Musk is now calling the shots for House Republicans on government funding while Trump hides in Mar-a-Lago behind his handlers. It increasingly seems like we're in for 4 years of an unelected oligarch running the country by pulling on his puppets' strings. Obviously, a comment that is targeted, at Trump and his response to that. But is Congressman Goldman right?
Well, it certainly doesn't bode well for the future if Elon Musk is going to have this type of influence over the basic functioning of government. Right now, really, it's up to Speaker Mike Johnson. He's the Speaker of the House. He can put the bill on the floor. He knows that he needs Democrats to pass a continuing resolution. We've always known this. So that's really the issue. The Speaker can ignore all the noise and put the bill on the floor. He can do this one of two ways. He can do it under what's called a suspension of the rules, where they need 2/3 of the entire vote, or they can go through the regular process and then run the risk of some House Republicans tanking this in the Rules Committee. And then you would only need a majority vote. But right now, it's up to the Speaker of the House to make a decision, to put the bill on the floor and figure out what will get the votes.
But Charlie, I mean, I would think Democrats, though, would say, okay, who's really running things? Why should we? Because we know Johnson is going to need Democrats to help get anything done. If I'm Hakeem Jeffries and the Democrats, I'm saying, wait a second. Why are we going to help you when we're negotiating with you, but you're not really even the person who seems to be in charge here?
Well, they've already negotiated the bill. They've already negotiated the bill, and they've got Democratic support. So put it on the floor and let the votes fall where they may. Ignore Trump and ignore Musk on this, because they're going to shut the government down. Otherwise, Musk and Trump are going to shut it down. But Johnson could prevent that just by allowing a vote.
With me here, New York Times journalist and podcast host Lulu Garcia-Navarro. Also CNN senior political commentator David Axelrod, former Trump administration official Matt Moers, and former Illinois Republican Congressman Adam Kinzinger. Congressman Kinzinger, I'd like to begin with you, because what do you make of the politics of the president-elect trying to kill this bill along with the help of Elon Musk here? And how does Speaker Johnson handle this? Because his own support is hanging by a thread.
Well, first off, I'd like to say thank the Lord God that I am not in Congress anymore. I know this game. They always play this like Christmas deadline, stupid game. But look, President Musk this morning made it clear, with all his vast government experience, which is basically he became rich on the federal government, that he doesn't want Republicans to pass this. And seemingly Vice President Trump kind of backed him up then at that point. And what it says about the politics is this is going to be a messy 4 years. The whole debt ceiling thing, Donald Trump is making it clear that he wants the debt ceiling to go up. By the way, the debt ceiling is going to have to go up, but he doesn't want to have to take ownership for it, because he will, again, for 4 years, look at the Democrats and blame them. And so what this says about the politics is good luck for the next 4 years. I don't think they'll shut the government down, because ultimately they'll want to get home for Christmas. They'll do like a 1 month CR, pretending like that's going to fix everything. But yeah, I mean, I think President Elon has made it clear what his agenda is going to be for the next 4 years.
Yeah, it does seem that the only thing that truly moves Capitol Hill is vacations, in my experience, watching that building behind me. David Axelrod, it seems that part of Trump's calculation here is that he wouldn't get blamed for this shutdown because he's not president yet, even though in many ways he's acting like president, certainly on affairs of foreign policy. Who stands to lose the most from a potential shutdown?
Well, look, it's pretty clear that they were about to pass the bill, and Musk intervened, and Trump followed him, and now we're headed into this crisis period. You know, my friend Rahm Emanuel always used to say nothing gets Congress going like the smell of jet fuel that people are going to want to get out of Washington. So maybe that will happen again. But you know, the thing that I find, I mean, first of all, let's just level set this. Everyone who's watching this should strap on their seatbelts, because this is what the next 4 years are going to be like. And Speaker Johnson ought to be strapping on his parachute, because I don't know how he's going to have a narrower margin come January. And you know, if he's in this kind of jam now, imagine where he's going to be then. I don't know what's going to happen to him. What was confusing to me is Musk sends out one of his tweets, and he says no one should do anything until January 20th when Trump gets there. Trump sends out a tweet saying they ought to pass a clean CR with a debt ceiling, raising the debt ceiling, because as Adam says, he doesn't want to be blamed for it. So they seem to be saying different things, and eventually they're going to have to get together and decide who the president is.
Matt, I wonder what your read of that relationship is, because it was that Musk tweet that seemed to really set this off. And Donald Trump historically is not someone who likes to be overshadowed here. Do you see potential tension developing between the two of them over time?
I don't, and because I don't think Elon Musk was intentionally getting ahead of where Donald Trump was. I mean, there's been conservative frustration, and candidly, it was conservative concern when they didn't know what was going to be in the bill. And it turned into conservative frustration once they saw what was going to be in the bill, whether it was some of the funding, extra funding that was going in, or the pay increases for members of Congress and things like that. And so, I don't think this is the tail wagging the dog. This is the fact that you have widespread concern from conservatives, including Donald Trump, as well as including Elon Musk, about ultimately what has been put into this package. And, the key thing that Donald Trump wants, he's long believed that the debt ceiling should maybe even just be raised and go away, that Congress can eliminate the actual debt ceiling. That's something that you don't necessarily need to have congressional approval to increase in specific amounts. And so clearly that would, if they could do that, or you do a larger debt ceiling increase that maybe even lasts 4 years, it clears the deck of that type of fight that he really doesn't want to have, because he'd much rather be talking about the priorities that he has.
How could you eliminate the debt ceiling or extend it for 4 years and come to bring about one of his promises was to end, this endless spending that he consistently blamed on Democrats? That sounds like a president who's willing to, let debt get out of control.
No, because it's two very different issues, Jim. I mean, there's the issue of spending levels that will be approved or not under Donald Trump and new spending levels. And there's the issue of the spending that's already occurred, which is really what the debt ceiling has to do with. It has to do with the credit card bill you've already run up, not the future spending that you have. And so I think if today's any indication, it's actually that maybe fiscal discipline might be in vogue actually for the next few years, something that a lot of folks on both sides of the aisle weren't sure about.
We should note the CBO has calculated that Trump's policies would add to the national debt, particularly tax cuts. Lulu Garcia-Navarro, when you look at the collection of events, and again, we haven't had the inauguration. That's still a few weeks away.
It feels like it.
And you haven't sworn in the new members of Congress,
No.
but you do have a potential shutdown here. You have a challenge, at least, to Johnson's leadership here. Thomas Massie has already said he's not going to vote for him, and that Johnson's margins are very thin. The stock market plunged today, and not just on a daily event, but the read from the Fed that inflation's actually going to go up next year based on policies it sees as inflationary, including tariffs here. Is that the beginning that Trump and Republicans were hoping for?
I mean, the signal that this is sending is a signal that Republicans are at each other's throats. Mm-hmm. And this is not the signal that you want to be sending. But I do want to sort of lay this out, which is this is a fight that, as Adam Kinzinger said, happens every year. Yeah. Every year there's this huge omnibus. Everyone's stuffing this turkey full of everything that they can to get it passed. So this is not uncommon. What is uncommon is to have Elon Musk basically tweeting about this over and over and over again, and urging elected lawmakers to vote against it, and then threatening them and saying, I'm going to use my money
100%.
if you do not do what I say. And if you read what he's written on Twitter, X now, what he's saying is, I'm speaking for the people. I'm just alerting the people through this platform that I own that this is something that they have to be concerned about. But let's talk about what's in this bill. It is $100 billion in aid for farmers. It is, pharmacy benefit manager controls. It is criminalizing deep fake porn. I mean, there are issues here. Disaster relief for North Carolina. I mean, there are issues here that have to be dealt with and are popular in a bipartisan way. So, what is it that they want to cut exactly? And what is this big pork that they're talking about?
Well, we talk about the fears, right? I mean, that threat of a Elon Musk-funded primary challenge is one that Republicans have been using to get or attempt to get through some of the more controversial nominees as well. Folks seem to listen to those threats.